name's Laura Terry, and I'm an associate professor in the FAY Jones School of Architecture. In addition to teaching the beginning design studios here, I'm also an artist and maintain an active studio practice. I love books and I love book binding, and so today I'm going to show you how to make some sketchbooks from home with the materials that you have available. I want to begin by talking a little bit about the different types of books and why some books are better for sketchbooks than others. The most common book that you're familiar with is the Codex. The Codex is a book that is bound on one edge. We know ours is the Western Codex because we read from left to right. There are also books called fan books, which are bound at a single point and can be displayed and arranged in a fan shape. And finally, there are also accordion books, books that are folded from a single sheet of paper or from individual pages that have been taped together. Our goal today is to show you different books that you can make that can help you begin your sketching practice. I also want to talk a little bit about the tools that you might use for sketching. This will be completely up to you what you like to use: pencils, pen, watercolor. It would certainly determine the paper that you're using in the sketchbook. Water media requires a thicker paper so that it doesn't buckle. You might want to experiment with different papers and pens and how they might bleed through the paper. So if you're going to be using ink, you want to make sure that you're using a thicker paper where the ink won't bleed through to the other side. The other thing that you want to consider is the subject matter that you're sketching. So if you're someone who is really interested in the landscape, then you'd want to make a sketchbook that has a different proportion that privileges the landscape, where you could have these long panoramic images. I also like to work with a sketchbook that opens flat, because then I feel like I'm not concerned about that fold in the middle. I can actually work across a page. So the examples that you're going to see today are sketchbooks that open flat. The other thing that you want to consider is the portability of the sketchbook. Obviously, you're going to be using the sketchbook on site, so you want to make sure that it's not too big, not too cumbersome. That's the great thing about the accordion, is that you can have a long sheet of paper, but it can fold into something that's the size of your hand. Now we're going to show two different types of books that can be made from folded single sheets of paper or from paper that has been taped and assembled. The first one is called the zine or pamphlet, and it's through a series of simple folds and a single cut can be transformed into a signature that can be later bound into a sketchbook. And the second is the accordion, which we've shown earlier. For these two books, you'll just need some simple materials from home: a cutting mat or a piece of cardboard to protect the surface on which you're cutting, a ruler and a pencil for measuring, an X-Acto knife or scissors, and tape. It's also really valuable if you have a metal tool like this, a simple butter knife, to help crease your folds and make sure that you have good folded edges. So now we are going to show you a really simple way to create a signature from a single sheet of paper. The great thing about this technique is that you really don't have to measure anything, because the size of the paper is going to predetermine. The first thing that you want to do is you want to take the top edge of the paper and fold it toward you and make a crease along that center fold. Then what you're going to do is you're going to unfold the paper and fold the left edge over to the right edge. Then you will take the top sheet and fold it back on itself. And then you'll repeat the process for the other side. The great thing about this is it folds the paper evenly and you don't have to do any measuring. Once all your folds are created, what you're going to do is you're going to cut a slit between these two folds. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can do it with an X-Acto knife. Again, make sure you're using a metal ruler and a cutting mat. If you don't have an X-Acto knife, you can do it with scissors, carefully inserting the scissors at those edges and cutting across the two pieces. Make sure that you don't cut the two end folds, because then you would cut your paper in half. Exactly. So once you've made all the folds and you have the slit cut, it'll be really valuable if you go back and fold everything in the opposite directions, and you'll see why in just a minute. So make sure that every fold has been folded in both directions, and you can also use the back edge of a butter knife to make sure that your folds are nice and crisp. Then what you'll do is fold the sheet back in half and then bring these two pieces, the center two pieces, out, and that creates the signature. So now you have a book that can be used as a sketchbook as single sheets, across a sheet, or unfolded to create a larger image. One of the reasons this is such a great technique is because if you're on site somewhere, you don't necessarily want to have a giant pad of paper with you for drawing. So this is a great way to make a portable book that can go with you anywhere and can be folded up nicely to fit in a bag or your pocket even, but can be unfolded so that you can work large format.
This sketchbook is from our first year Minneapolis field trip in the fall. And I primarily used it for sketching on site. I like to sketch on site starting with pencil, and then if I want to add more detail going back, I use color or marker or colored pencil to add a little bit more detail and capture the essence of a place. So these drawings are from a lot of different places, and I like to kind of collage drawings over each other. So all of these are different aspects of the Christ Church Lutheran in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then these are from an art museum in the Des Moines area, the Des Moines Art Center. And then there's some various banks, and then there's a bridge in Minneapolis, and then this kind of hexagon pattern and this church are from the Christ Church Lutheran in Collegeville, Minnesota. And I personally like to use a variety of medium, but I do kind of gear more towards pencil and pen.
So now we're going to show you how to make an accordion sketchbook from single sheets of paper. There's a really big advantage to this in that you can make it as long as you want. And the other great thing is that if you use up all that paper, you can just keep adding more and more paper. So what you want to do is cut all of your sheets to the same size and then lay them flat on a surface with the two edges of the paper next to one another as tight as you can. You do need to make sure that you leave a little bit of space so that the page can fold. And then you simply want to tape across those two sheets. Carefully press the tape to make sure that you're really adhering it to both pieces of the paper. And then carefully with your X-Acto knife or scissors, if you have them, trim the tape away from the edges. And you're going to repeat this process over and over until you have as many sheets taped together as you want. So this is a great way to make a sketchbook from paper that you have at home. You could tape together different types of paper if you wanted. That's another advantage of taping paper versus folding from a single sheet, is you could mix in different types of watercolor paper. This sketchbook is made from a very heavy paper, a multimedia paper that can take lots of different media like ink or watercolor. And then what you have to do is simply fold them back and forth into that accordion. So some of the folds are going to be what are called mountain folds, where the peak is up high, and some of those folds are going to be valley folds, where the fold is down inside.
In the FAY Jones School, regardless of your discipline or major, we're all required to study abroad, which is a really incredible opportunity that you have as a student, and you have several options to choose from. I myself had the opportunity to study abroad in both the Mexico City program and the Rome program. And so the sketchbook I'm going to be showing you right now is my personal sketchbook from the Mexico City study abroad. So this example again is the accordion fold that we looked at previously, and what's really awesome about it is that you can draw on one sheet at a time, or the same drawing can span across 4 images at once, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to explore the same place but in different ways. So one thing I want to talk about are like the different kinds of drawings that you can make both on site or at home or traveling. So you can always kind of start with the perspective and what you're instinctively looking at right in that moment, but there are other kinds of drawings that you can make too. You can be more analytical and start to look at the different ways that your space is proportioned. How is it broken up in different parts and things like that. But you can also get more into specific details, like how is that window built out? How is it different from the other windows in your home or the other windows in your school, and ways that you can make comparisons in that way. And similarly so with color. Maybe certain places you're looking at are detailed with different materials, golds, reds, and this gives you an opportunity to kind of remember those things in a way other than a photo. Often when you draw on site, you remember more details about where you were, and you build a larger kind of almost dictionary of experiences that you had while you were there, because you remember so much about it when you're sitting there drawing it in the moment. So I personally really love the combination of both watercolor, ink, and graphite because it often can give you a lot of really great textures. You can record colors as the way you're seeing things, and that's not always the color of materials. It can be the color of the sky. It can be the way you're feeling that day. Sketching doesn't always have to be so literal. If you're feeling particularly angry or moody that day, it doesn't have to be as colorful. It can be equally as aggressive depending upon the space or you as an individual. So don't be afraid to get a little experimental. Sketching is ultimately a way to kind of embody what you're feeling or seeing in that moment. It always doesn't have to be so literal. So don't be afraid to get a little crazy with it and make use of the accordion in the way that you can cover so much information in such a little amount of space.
So the last sketchbook that we're going to show you how to make is a very low-tech version of one of my favorite books, which is called The Buttonhole. What's great about The Buttonhole is that it's made from single signatures that are stitched together, and it also lays flat. For the low-tech version, I figured out a way to use rubber bands to bind the signatures together into the hardboard cover. So what's great about this is you can use signatures of different sizes, of different papers, and one of the things that I like about this is just the flexibility of that option. So I've chosen different papers. You could think about the different media that we've talked about and the different types of drawings that you might like to make. Some papers will have a different texture, or what we call a tooth, and that can also affect the media that you're working with. So the first thing that you'll do is you'll take papers of the same size and fold them together into what are called signatures. Signatures are simply bundles of single sheets of paper that are folded along one edge. Most books that you're familiar with are actually made from signatures that are bound or glued together. So that's the first step, is to fold your paper. Then what you'll do is we'll assemble the cover. So to begin making this sketchbook, you want to start by folding your signatures. Begin by folding a single sheet, and then multiple sheets. Bundle them together into those signatures. You can use different paper. This is a basic drawing paper, a watercolor paper, and a mixed media paper. Once your signatures are folded, you want to use the tallest of your signatures or the largest of your signatures to determine the height and width of your cover. So Virginia has three different signatures she's showing you. She's using the largest one to then measure, making sure that the cardboard cover is about 1/8 of an inch bigger on all sides. The other thing that you want to do is measure the width of your signatures together to determine the spine. I would recommend cutting the spine bigger than you need. That way you can add signatures as you continue to make more and more sketches. Once your signatures are complete and your boards are cut for your covers, you're ready to tape them together. So lay them out as shown, with the front cover on the right, the spine in the middle, and the back cover on the left. Making sure that there is that space between the spine and the covers so that the book will close. Then take your duct tape or packing tape or other heavy tape that you're using and align it along the spine. Making sure that you keep the edges together and that you keep that gap between the cover and the spine. And then repeat that for the other. Once you have them taped together, flip it over and bring those edges of the tape up and around. And then you may want to use the scissors or the ruler to force the tape down into that gap so that you're really creating a nice hinge. So once your cover is taped together, and again, you'll want to make sure that you tape it on all sides so that you have a nice, really nice hinge. You may also want to tape around the edges of your sketchbook, again, so that you prevent corners from bending or folding. Again, using the butter knife, force the tape down into that gap that you've left to make the hinge. And then you can either trim or fold over if you want the extra reinforcement at the top and bottom of your book. Slip a rubber band over the signature and then slide that rubber band onto the spine and repeat for every signature. You could make your signatures as accordions, and they could also be attached into the cover this way. It's a really flexible way to have all of your signatures together. You can use different colored rubber bands to make a really nice spine. So now you are ready to begin working in your sketchbook, recording the world around you, making amazing drawings, and learning about the built environment. So one last thing that I think is really important to tell you is that sketching is a lifelong practice. You aren't going to be good at it the first time you go out and try to sketch what you see. So practice. Use the sketchbook as a practice and start to develop the habit of sketching every day. Once you do that, you'll find that you have a lot more confidence in drawing and in your ability to record the world. And it makes it a lot more fun to go places and see things when you know that you can record them through your own eyes as opposed to the camera. So again, get out there, sketch, make a sketchbook, make beautiful drawings, but most of all, have fun.